Edgar Cayce, healer and spiritual leader. Edgar Cayce, who was active from the 1920s to 1945s, earned his fame as a documented psychic and was best known as the Sleeping Prophet. However, Edgar Cayce's strength was really as an amazing healer and spiritual leader. Edgar Cayce, a famous documented psychic healer and Christian spiritual leader, provided some excellent spiritual insights. Cayce's observation about the world within and the world without is an excellent framework for spirituality. Each entity finds itself in a three-dimensional phase of existence or experience: the world without, the world within, and the mind that may span or bridge the two. From Edgar Cayce, reading 1100 to 26. That is, the origins of all life are in spirit, as life force, which is the creative force that brings all into existence. Then mind takes this life force and creates meaning with it. Spiritual self and spiritual identity. The spiritual self is life, the activity of the mental and of the physical is of the soul, and thus a soul body. From Edgar Cayce, reading 3590 to 2. Dr. P. Wong emphasizes Viktor Frankl's principle that human beings have a spiritual core with an innate need for meaning. In other words, the innermost core of the self is spiritual also. Saslow, in her studies of the core 4 relation between spirituality and compassion, observes, spirituality was especially associated with having a spiritual identity. According to Edgar Cayce, spirit is the life force, the vital spark that animates life. As Viktor Frankl stated that there is a divine spark within every individual. Edgar Cayce said, spirit is the spark, or portion of the divine that is in every entity. From Edgar Cayce, reading 3744 to 5. Rodinath Swami observes that when spirituality is the basis of your life, it gives you the strength, wisdom and courage to surmount the many storms of life that could destroy a weaker person who doesn't have this foundation. Edgar Cayce emphasized that each entity finds itself in a three-dimensional phase of existence or experience: the world without, the world within, and the mind that may span or bridge the two. From Edgar Cayce, reading 1100 to 26. That is, the origins of all life are in the spirit, which is the creative force that brings all into existence. Then mind takes this life force and creates meaning with it. Mind the builder, the spirit the creator, the material is that created. Great truth. Keep it before you. From Edgar Cayce, reading 900 to 374, Cayce also stated that first, find self's relationship to the creative force, God. For God is not mocked, and whatsoever a man soweth, that must he also reap. From 3292 to 1. That is ultra-relevant today. Edgar Cayce, the incredible case of the Dietrich Child. The most incredible case Edgar Cayce ever encountered was the case of the Dietrich Child, which is what made Edgar Cayce famous. In fact, because newspapers did publish the remarkable story of the Dietrich Child, Edgar Cayce immediately became a sensation. In 1902, Cayce had just begun to gain a reputation as a healer. Aimee Dietrich was a 6-year-old child who had become nearly catatonic since she had been beset by seizures at the age of 2 after an attack of la grippe, influenza, flu. She now had as many as 20 seizures a day. Her growth as a child had ceased at age 2 and her intellectual functions had degenerated. She couldn't recognize her father or mother. The Dietrichs had taken their daughter Aimee to 5 different doctors. None of them knew what Aimee's problem was and viewed her case as a siren hopeless case. In absolute desperation, they asked for the help of Edgar Cayce, since they had heard that Edgar Cayce had healed some people somewhat miraculously. At the request of the father, Edgar Cayce went to the home of the Dietrichs on December 12, 1902, and gave a reading while in a trance. When he awakened, Mrs. Dietrich was weeping. p. 177 River, Edgar Cayce's reading indicated that just before she caught the grip, she had slipped and struck the end of her spine while getting out of the carriage, and the infection had settled in her spine, causing the seizures. While for the most part the causes of epilepsy are largely unknown, one of the specific causes listed is infections of the spine. Developed countries have more incidence of epilepsy, and it is believed traumatic injuries and infection are the reason. Cayce prescribed osteopathic manipulations for the spine. Within a week, Aimee called her mother and father by name and asked for her doll by name. In his sworn affidavit of October 8, 1910, Mr. Dietrich states that Cayce outlined to Dr. A.C. Lane, D.O., now of Griffin, Georgia, how to proceed to cure her. Dr. Lane treated her accordingly, every day for 3 weeks. Her mind began to clear up about the 8th day, and within 3 months she was in perfect health, and is so to this day. P.213 Epilepsy. A letter from Lois Freeman, Aimee's sister, said, Aimee L. Dietrich, 6 years old, pronounced a hopeless case of epilepsy, improved rapidly after a reading by Edgar Cayce and treatment by Dr. A.C. Lane. In 3 weeks' time she was able to sit up in a chair and cut out pictures. She entered school the following year, attending schools in Hopkinsville and Winchester, Kentucky. Sometime in 1917 or 1918 Aimee had some seizures. She became interested in Christian Science and had a healing experience. p. 214 Epilepsy. Documented cures of epileptics. 8 cures out of slightly over 100 cases may not seem remarkable, but considering the circumstances, it actually is truly exceptional. Curing epileptics prior to the 1970s, when some effective medications became available, during Edgar Cayce's time, was nothing short of miraculous. Even today, the outlook for epileptics is far from rosy. In only 70% of epileptics can seizures be controlled by medication. In those cases, diet, neurostimulation, and brain surgery are employed. The causes of the majority of seizures are unknown, though trauma, brain injury, spinal cord infection, stroke, brain tumors, infections of the brain are known to cause seizures. 80% of the cases of epilepsy occur in developed countries. Some scientists believe that is due to the increase of bodily trauma in developed countries, and worldwide, in 2015, there were about 39 million cases of epilepsy. The disease has been around since the origins of time, and a record of a case of epilepsy was found in an ancient Mesopotamian language, Akkadian, dating to around 2000 BC. Many ancient Greeks regarded epilepsy as a sacred disease. Some believe Julius Caesar may have been an epileptic because of 4 documented experiences which resembled epileptic seizures occurred. While all cases of epilepsy do not occur over an entire lifetime, and with modern medication some people improve to the point where no treatment is required, generally, epilepsy is viewed as incurable. Even with today's medication, epilepsy cannot be cured. Patricia O. Schaefer, RN, MN, Joseph I. Sievin, MD on 7/2013, I should emphasize that in Cayce's day and age, a very crude sedative was the only medication available. Also, it is noteworthy that Cayce was strong on diet, and diet is used by some doctors in dealing with some specific cases of epilepsy. Edgar Cayce cured 7 other people out of a total of 105 cases that he had in his lifetime. Except for Edgar Cayce's cured patients, to my knowledge are the only cured epileptics during his age. But it is known that in freak cases, children have actually grown out of having seizures, and a few people have a few seizures then no more, but that again is a very small percentage. Offhand, I would think the odds of cures in that day and age might be minimally 1 in 1,000. However, taking odds of a cure at 1 in 100 would be extremely conservative, and that worked out mathematically as extremely significant. Miracles of Mr. Wright and Roxley Doss, The Power of Belief. Andrew Newberg, a neuroscientist and author, tells the astounding and shocking story of Mr. Wright's as recounted by his doctor, Dr. Klopfer. The story begins with Mr. Wright at death's door. His body was riddled with tumors, his liver and spleen were enlarged, his lungs were filled with fluid, and he needed an oxygen mask to breathe. P.3. On hearing about the new drug Crobiosan, touted by the media as a miracle cure, Mr. Wright pleaded with Dry Klopfer to be given the drug. Dr. Klopfer gave him an injection on Friday. On returning Monday, Dr. Klopfer discovered, much to his astonishment, that Mr. Wright's tumors had shrunk to half their original size, something that even radiation treatments could not have accomplished, and after 10 days practically all signs of the disease had disappeared. But that is not the end of the story. Mr. Wright was the only patient who showed any improvement. A couple of months later, the Food and Drug Administration published a very negative report on the drug Mr. Wright had been given. After hearing of the report, Mr. Wright immediately became ill. Dr. Klopfer realized that it was Mr. Wright's belief in the drug that had affected the cure. So, he told Mr. Wright a new, super-refined, double-strength product had come out. After injecting him with water, Mr. Wright improved right away and his tumors disappeared again. Then a new report by the American Medical Association calling carbazine worthless was published in newspapers. 2 days after reading the newspaper article trashing carbazine, Mr. Wright was dead. The power of belief, the empowerment of meaning, is an incredibly strong force in human behavior. With this story in mind, it should be easier to understand how loneliness and social isolation could negatively affect people's health and well-being in drastic ways. Excerpt from essay The Miracles of Prayer, Roxley Doss's Miracle Is Hope a Primary Function of Prayer? It would go without saying that people pray hoping to get help or achieve some goal or end. In June 2018, Roxley Doss, an 11-year-old girl, was diagnosed with diffuse intrinsic pontine glioma, or DIPG. Dr. Virginia Harrod of Dell Children's Medical Center said about DIPG, "It is very rare, but when we see it, it is a devastating disease." 1. A blog on Roxley's Caring Bridge page said Roxley had an MRI on September 7th. It was read to the Dosses at their next doctor's appointment, which was September 10th. The results are there is no tumor evident. A miracle. 2. When Dr. Harrod saw Roxley's MRI, her first reaction was that it was unbelievable. Then very sad news today, Roxley from Texas has passed away after fighting DIPG since June 2018. The conclusion that I draw is that there is a dimension to human consciousness beyond the limited measurable molecular dimension, a deeper dimension. The medical analysis of Roxley's case is that the biological and physiological makeup of her body changed, that her molecular structure had altered. It is interesting that while these documented miracles were temporary, yet Edgar Cayce's cures of epileptics were apparently permanent, from my research. Curing 8 out of 108 cases of epileptics may not appear that impressive, but in Cayce's day and age, without any proper medication, that is actually phenomenal. Even in today's age of modern medicine, the norm is maintenance with medications. I have wondered why both cases were temporary cures. The possibility that spiritual energy may be limited in people did occur to me. Bio and background. Edgar Cayce was born on March 18, 1877, near Hopkinsville, Kentucky. Edgar was one of 6 children of Carrie and Leslie Cayce, who were farmers, yet people noticed Edgar was a bit different. Edgar had imaginary friends. His belief in the little folk persisted until a girl his age, who was a very close friend, died. Edgar also reportedly talked with his dead grandfather, whose death he had personally witnessed and perhaps traumatized him. Edgar was taken to church at age 10, and he began his lifelong obsession with reading the Bible. Every year from then on, Edgar Cayce read the Bible cover to cover. Later, after the founding of our Association for Research and Enlightenment, he wrote In Search of God, which was meant to be the Bible of our study groups. His book, In Search of God, is both challenging and inspirational, and has a somewhat unique view of different aspects of God. According to Cayce legend, as a young child Edgar spoke with a winged angel who shone brightly like a brilliant and blinding light. The angel told Edgar that his prayers had been answered and he would have the gift to heal people as he so passionately desired. Another story about Edgar Cayce explains when Cayce had extreme difficulties learning at school, his frustrated father, Leslie Cayce, put Cayce to the test. After being harshly treated, Edgar asked for a break to rest, and went to sleep with the book under his head. When he woke, and he had the ability to recite his lessons and seemed to know everything in the book. His clairvoyant ability actually didn't surface until he lost his voice while selling insurance with his father. A hypnotist named Hart happened to hear of Edgar's problem. Hart hypnotized him and Edgar Cayce recovered his voice, but only while he was under hypnosis. Later, Al Lane, a local hypnotist, chanced upon the idea of hypnotizing Cayce and then asking Cayce how to cure himself. It was interesting, under hypnosis, Cayce spoke in the plural we form, and recommended increasing blood flow to his throat/voice box. Lane made that suggestion, and it was aiding his throat, which turned beet red from the flow of blood. Al Lane then asked Cayce to describe Lane's own physiological state and suggest remedies, which Lane found to be appropriate. Lane tried to talk the young Edgar Cayce into offering his services as a healer. Cayce was reluctant for several reasons. Because Cayce was in a trance and was unconscious during those times, he had no idea what he was saying was right and had no idea if the remedies would work. Newspapers, because Cayce's story was so unusual, printed stories of Cayce's cures, which made Cayce become famous. Edgar Cayce was called the sleeping prophet because he would answer questions about the future, or the past, or about a person's illnesses and physiological status while he was in a trance. Cayce gave these unconscious readings for people who requested help or had metaphysical questions. He would quickly and easily go into a trance after lying down on a couch and loosening his tie and collar. He would be asked questions while he was in a trance, and his answers would be recorded by his lifelong secretary, Gladys Davis. He turned out to be gifted with an ability to help find cures for people, many of whom were judged by modern medicine, modern at the time that is, to be incurable. Summary: while famous as the sleeping prophet, for making predictions, prophecies, Edgar Cayce, a renowned psychic healer and spiritual leader, who gained fame for his readings while in a trance, believed in the power of spirit and mind, emphasizing the importance of finding one's spiritual self and its connection to the creative force. He gained early recognition for his successful treatment of Aimee Dietrich, a young girl suffering from epilepsy. To emphasize the power of belief and its impact on healing, I cite the cases of Mr. Wright, whose tumor remission was linked to his faith in a miracle drug. There is also the case of Roxley. I highlight Cayce's unique approach to healing, emphasizing the role of spirituality, mind-body connection, and the importance of finding meaning in life.